If it were my money, would I go out and buy this or the i20N? Car Obsession is proudly supported by Carly and Draggy. Check out the video description to find out the latest discount codes. Hello guys, welcome back to Car Obsession and welcome to another point of view review. This time I'm joined by the brand new facelifted Ford Fiesta ST, looking resplendent in its optional mean green paintwork. Of course, the new car has got a new face and I actually prefer the old face. I think this one is maybe a bit out of proportion. I think the grille is a bit too large for my liking, but that's merely my opinion. Design is and always will be subjective. Now, let me draw your attention to what is under the bonnet. It is, of course, the same 1.5 litre turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol as used in the old car, but it has got a slight tweak to it. It still offers 200 horsepower, but torque has been increased from 290 Newton meters up to 320 Newton meters. In regard to what that has done to the 0 to 62 time, nothing, because the increase in torque is all about offering a stronger mid-range punch as opposed to off-the-line grunt. Therefore, this will hit 62 miles per hour, the same as the old car, 6.5 seconds, and in case you're wondering, the top speed is 143. Now, there's two other key changes about the new car. The first of which is the fact that you can only have it as a 5-door and not a 3-door. That may disappoint some of you, but I think the 5-door still looks pretty good. The other key change is to be found inside the car. Now, the old Recaro seats have been binned and Ford Performance is now making their own seats in-house. And whilst the headrest, the integrated headrest, is a bit ungainly in my opinion, credit where credit's due, these seats are fantastic to sit in. Speaking of which, let me park my bottom and we can go for a drive. Now, if you are a regular to my channel, you will know that a car like this deserves a special little something. My driving gloves. Yes, some of you love them, some of you hate them, but hey, I don't really care too much. Right, slip on the gloves like so, and we can go for a nice spirited drive, which is exactly what this car was designed for. Right, you've got the start button on the dash, and the 1.5 fires into life. Now, you do have a choice of driving modes, as you would expect from any modern day hot hatch. You've got two ways in which you can operate the drive mode. You've got the mode button, in which you can toggle through normal, sport, racetrack, and eco. Now, as you can hopefully hear, you may not be able to hear it on my clip-on microphone, but just listen to the valve open up on the exhaust. So that's eco, normal. Wait for it. Here, there is a slight change. Or you have this button here, which hopefully you can see marked S. Now, let's say, for example, I'm driving in eco, which for a car like this I would say is pointless. Hit the S button and it takes you straight into sport mode, which I really like. No faffing about, just straight in, and yeah, no messing. Now, this is of course a hot hatch, therefore the ride is firm, and because the camera is attached to my head and my head will move through the bumps, there may be times where it is a little bit unsettled. So if you suffer with motion sickness, I apologise in advance. So I try not to move my head too much for this bit. Right, we're good to go. Oh yes, this is a fun little pocket rocket. So as I may have mentioned, I've got a 6-speed manual gearbox, and the change it offers is sublime. It's slick, snappy, and mechanical. Perhaps the i20N is a bit tighter in its change, but let's not take anything away from the ST. It offers a brilliant gear change. Now, can you really notice that extra torque? No. I would say really you would need to drive both cars back to back to really notice that extra oomph in the mid-range. And to be fair, it has been quite some time since I last drove the pre-facelift Fiesta ST. But regardless, this 3-pot, even though it is a 3-cylinder, it's strong on its power, and it's got a nice fizzy energy about it. It's got more energy, more character compared to the 4-pot used in the i20M. Now, I would have loved to have filmed a comparison between this and the i20M, but it just didn't fall into place. Hopefully by now, my i20M content would have gone up on the channel, and hopefully you've watched it. Both cars are brilliant within their own rights. I would say the i20N is a bit more focused and a bit more track ready, whereas this is, I would say, probably a little bit easier to live with day to day and is more fun. But I want to stop the comparisons for the time being and focus on the job in hand. Typically I'm stuck behind some traffic. The layout of the pedals is pretty much bang on. You can heel and toe quite nicely. The brake pedal's got a nice firmness about it and a good feedback. The brakes themselves are strong, which in a car like this is exactly what you'd want. And the clutch pedal's got a nice weight to it as well. I'd also say, again, sorry to draw a comparison between this and the i20N, I'd say the i20N, the biting point, the margin for error was actually quite slim, and I actually found myself stalling the car once or twice, which is very uncharacteristic of me. But in this car, yeah, I've not had the same problem. It may have been that particular i20N I had. It may not be a common problem, but yeah, I found the i20N biting point, yeah, was quite a narrow window in which to operate in. But again, let's get back to the Fiesta. Now, I love the way how the steering wheel feels in the hands. It's meaty, it's got a nice weight to it. It's the front end is really responsive as well. And the actual steering wheel itself has got a nice thickness to it, a nice girth. And that is very pleasing in the hands. Giggity. Yes. Oh, lovely. I love little hot hatches like this, and dare I say, this is arguably one of the best performance cars for UK roads, because as you can see down here, it's quite narrow, it's quite beaten. You don't really want a wide, low-slung sports car, supercar I should say. And on the topic of supercars, sorry, just make sure I'm good to go. On the topic of supercars, let's face it, in the UK you can't use their power, and that's what I love about cars like this and the i20N. They've got more than enough power, but you can still use most of it on the public road without either crashing into a tree or having your license taken away. And they're pretty affordable as well, relatively speaking. Let's face it, no new cars are really cheap, not unless you want to buy a Dacia Sandero. And let's face it, life's too short to be driving around in a Sandero. I've got nothing against the car, but it's not exactly a Fiesta ST, is it? Heel and toe is lovely. It really, really is. As standard now on the ST, which only comes in one trim level, unlike previously where you had the ST1, which, let's face it, nobody bought, the ST2 and the ST3. Yeah, the new car, you only have it in pretty much ST3 form. And as standard, you get the performance pack. That gives you the racetrack mode. You may notice every now and then you've got an orange shift light down here, but it might be too small for the camera to pick up. And of course you get the limited slip differential. And previously, I would argue, when the performance pack was an optional extra, just having the LSD alone was worth having the performance pack. Now, of course, with this being a super mini hot hatch, you don't get adaptive damper, so you have one ride comfort setting, whether you have it in normal, eco sport or racetrack. The ride at low speeds or when you're around town it is firm and it is jiggly. Too firm for daily use? I would say no. If you've owned a Mark 7, or I should really say a Mark 7.5 Fiesta ST, then I think you'd be able to get on with this car just fine, because this and the pre-facelift Mark 8 ST, they are definitely more compliant, more refined compared to the Mark 7.5, which is a bit more raw in its drivability. Now, once you get the car up to faster speeds on roads like this, or dual carriageways or motorways, the ride is actually, relatively speaking, compliant. Yeah, I think you could daily this car, but this is coming from someone who's got 2 modified cars, one of which is on lowering springs, the other one on coilovers. So maybe I'm not the best judge of comfort. Oh, a little pop from the exhaust. Oh, this is so good through the corners. This car is wearing Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres around the 18-inch alloys, and as I've mentioned, you do have the limited slip differential as well. And that means through the corners, the ST is brilliant. But what I like about the ST, and this is something the i20N can't really match, is the playfulness, the adjustability of the chassis. If you want it to, you can induce lift-off oversteer in the ST, and you can't really do that in the i20M. Not as much anyway. But I love this bit of road. It's like a roller coaster. Scream if you want to go faster. As I've mentioned, the steering has got a good weight to it, even more so in sport or racetrack mode. And just all you really need to do is just flick your wrists, and as you can see, the front end is very willing to change direction. Yeah, it is impressive stuff. Oh, a little bit of a pothole there. Now, seeing as I'm stuck behind more traffic, annoyingly, I want to discuss the price, and this is a bit of a sticky area for the Fiesta ST, because the Hyundai i20, give or take, is about £25,500, and that's pretty good value when you bear in mind that this car, without options, which this car has a starting price of £26,645. Like I say, this car does have some options. The mean green paint work, which is a little under £800, but I would argue it's worth it because I love this colour. I've also got the Ford Sync 3 system with navigation as well. Now, interestingly, this car does have a panoramic roof, which is very nice, because without it, I think the inside would be rather dingy, because you do have dark headlining. But although this car does have a panoramic roof, you can't spec one in the UK, nor does it come as standard. And the spec sheet I have for this car even says on it, next to the panoramic roof, NLA, which one would assume stands for no longer available. So yeah, a bit interesting to have a car that's got something you can't have. The car I'm sat in right now is a little over £28,000, which, yeah, I'm not going to lie, it does seem like a lot for a small car. This car only has 2 options to my knowledge. That's the paint and the Sync 3 system with the navigation. The brand new Focus ST does have the Sync 4, but this hasn't been passed down to the Fiesta just yet. That will probably come in the next generation of Fiesta. Since filming this video, it has been revealed that the Fiesta will cease production in 2023. Sad times. Or perhaps they'll do an update for the facelift at some point, in which you will get the Sync 4. Maybe they'll do a special edition. I've got the 12.3-inch digital display in front of me, which, as you saw earlier, changes with the drive modes. Although racetrack doesn't really differ at all. Oh, I've got a clean run in front of me. Right, I'm going to shut up. almost messed up that gear change somehow. This is where things get a bit more jiggly. This road is rather uneven. Now, although the ride can be unsettled, even more so at slower speeds, I do want to give a special mention to these brand new Ford Performance Sport seats because they are really, really good. I was sceptical on how good they would be because I've been a big fan of Recaro for many years, much like many people. So when Ford made the decision to stop using Walkaround, I was quite surprised. I thought, okay, well, I'd be surprised if you can make a better seat, Ford. But you know what? Credit where credit's due. Ford Performance has done it. They've made a very, very good seat. They hug you in the right places, and I'd say they are probably a bit more accommodating for a broader person compared to the Recaros. The Recaros, they had quite big, chunky, thick bolsters that I would imagine would pinch your sides if you were a bit broader. Well, I say imagine. I'm sure at one point I took my dad out for a passenger ride in the pre-facelift Fiesta ST way back when. I'm sure he made a comment about the seats being a little bit too snug. Whereas these seats, I would say, yeah, they're going to be a bit more, a little bit more one size fits all, let's say. I'm a relatively skinny guy. Well, relatively, not as skinny as I was, sadly. But I'm not. I've still got enough support. But if I were to gain a bit of weight, well, a bit more weight, I should say, I would still be able to fit in these quite nicely. I would want to be sat a little bit lower, perhaps, but that's not the end of the world. Oh, that's bright. That's very bright. I do love how playful this thing is. It is a bundle of joy, it really is. Now I know there isn't exactly an abundance of small hot hatches nowadays because the 208 GTI is dead, the Clio RS is dead, the Corsa VXR is dead. But even so, if you want a fun hot hatch, then I don't think there's anything better than this. Granted, I know a lot of its competition have died off, but you do have the i20N, of course, and to a lesser extent, you do have the GR Yaris. But yeah, it's kind of in its own class, really, isn't it? I would say the GR Yaris hasn't really got any natural competitors or rivals. But yeah, if you want a small hot hatch that's fun, I don't think pound for pound you can do better than this. You do of course have the Polo GTI, but that's much more conservative and grown up. It's a good car, but a bit boring. Oh, look at that. An old SL. Oh, that's glorious. The kind of conundrum is, if it were my money, would I go out and buy this or the i20N? I don't know. Can I have both? Can I get a buy one get one free? Picking between these two cars is really, really difficult. It would be like someone asking me, Aaron, would you rather keep your right leg or your right arm? Well, I want both, really. I don't really want to be... Oh, hang on, it's a bit of a drop here. I don't really want to have one and not the other. So yeah, picking between the i20N and the Fiesta ST would be a very difficult task indeed. I don't really envy anyone who has to kind of make that decision. Thankfully, I don't have enough money to be in that position. Look at that. The lovely South Downs. Looking glorious as ever. So to sum up, the Fiesta ST is a really fun car. I love it. Yes, it is more money than the i20N. Probably not as good value. But you can't really put a price on fun. Well, you can, but you know what I mean. So I think if you want a fun hot hatch, this is what you want. If you want a more focused, perhaps track-ready hot hatch, then go for the i20N. But I think, ultimately, I don't think you can go wrong with either. That's probably my best advice. I think both cars are brilliant in their own rights in maybe slightly different ways. So no matter what you get, I think you'll be thrilled. And that's my honest, humble opinion. Anyway, it is time for me to finish. I do hope you have enjoyed this video. I found it useful. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.